Hey there folks, John here, and as you guys probably know, I recently picked up a arcade 1-up cabinet for 75 bucks. Usually these things are $300, but was able to score a deal. If you want more on that, link in the description to the video below about that. But I decided to try something new with this thing. Now, for those of you that don't know, maybe you're new to the channel, I mod quite a few systems, Nintendo, like an NES here. I've got a RGB modded NES that I did, if you guys can see that. And, you know, I do a lot of electronics work and repair and stuff like that. And a big way that I collect is basically buying old systems that don't work, repairing them, and selling them for a little bit of profit, usually just to cover costs of, you know, new games I want to add to my collection or whatever. I don't really do it to make a profit or flip things on eBay or whatever. But anyways, that's a big part of what I do, and since I found this arcade 1-up cabinet for cheap, you know, Asteroids is cool and everything, but the whole purpose of doing this was to open this thing up and turn it into a RetroPie console. And so this video is basically about modding this thing and getting it to be basically a two-player arcade cabinet. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and honestly this is a new kind of video for me. I usually don't do YouTube videos about my repair stuff and modding and that sort of thing. So if this is something you guys want me to do a little bit more of, go ahead and give this video a like. That would be nice. Leave a message down in the comments. I'm happy to do more of it. I just don't usually find it, you know, it doesn't occur to me usually to think that people would be interested in this sort of thing, but you know, it's something I'm definitely willing to do more of and show you guys a little bit more of what's going on. You'll have to forgive me, there's no air conditioner in my office area in my house, and it's pretty hot out, so if I'm sweating, you know, you'll have to forgive me for that. And just FYI, I've only got, I don't have all the parts in for this yet. I've only got a couple things, so this video is probably going to take place over a couple of days, so if you see me changing clothes, yes, it is a new day. And right now, the only one that I've got in is a video converter board for basically to use the let a RetroPie use the LCD. Now it came with a power adapter as well, power adapter board. We don't need this because the LCD electronics are going to take care of that for us. But basically, it looks a lot like, well, not a lot like, it looks exactly like this. And for those of you that haven't done electronics, this may look a little intimidating. But it really shouldn't be. Most electronics, especially boards and stuff like this that are made to adapt certain things, are usually pretty much plug and play. If you can do Legos, you can do this kind of thing. So we'll open it up, see what we got, and we'll go from there. Oh, and for those of you wondering why I am kneeling for this video, that is because this thing is only 4 feet tall. We may do a part 3 of this arcade 1-up series where I install a riser or build a riser for it to make it a little taller, which I do plan on doing. I don't know if I'll end up doing a video about it, but maybe that's one down the road. Anyways, just in case you haven't bought one of these things before and don't know, it is only 4 feet tall, so it is something you're going to have to plan to share unless you get a riser, which arcade 1-up does sell the risers. Anyways, that's the reason I'm kneeling down, just in case you're wondering. Alright, so here is the arcade 1-up board. This is the control panel we'll be working on, and this is where most of our time is probably going to be spent. As you can see, you have your on-off button, your volume button, your player 1 start, your player 2 start, and these two are probably going to stay in here. You got this trackball, or not really trackball, you got this spinner thing right here. It's actually pretty low quality, it's pretty light and pretty cheap. If I were to replace this, I would replace it with like one that you could adjust with, that you could do with just one hand or one finger like this. For now, we're gonna probably just disconnect this and leave it disconnected, and maybe we'll update that another day. These two button holes are gonna stay where they are, but the buttons themselves are gonna change. I've got a joystick that's gonna go right here, and then we're gonna have a button there, and then two buttons here, one there, and then the joystick finally right there. That's how this is going to end up going. Like I said, I don't have the buttons in yet, but that's where we're going to go with this by the time it's done. But let's go ahead and open this up and see what's in it and what it looks like on the inside. So if I flip it over right here, you can see you've got basically just a black outer shell. You know, you've got arcade 1-up and all that stuff, and you can see, you guys can probably actually see it even better than I can. You got your screws right here, and you got some down here as well. We're gonna go ahead and unscrew those real quick. All right. And now we are looking at the underside of the board. This is relatively simple, this setup, and basically, if I wanted to, I would actually be able to reuse some of these buttons, no problem at all. And the reason for that is because these little 2-pin Phoenix connectors right here, well, they're not really Phoenix connectors, but these little 2-pin connectors right here, this one's a 3-pin, they should go into the control board that we get with the buttons. And obviously here's your speaker. Eventually we will wire this as well in order to use the volume button that's already in here, but I do have to get an amp for it, so we probably won't do that right away. That might end up being the part 3 of the video as well. But anyway, yeah, so you can see what it looks like underneath. This is where the that spinner is, which again we'll be leaving alone. We'll probably just disconnect it from here and call it a day. But for now, that's all we really need to do. And I can actually come in here and use my snippers. Go ahead and snip these cable ties because we're going to end up cutting them out anyway. You got to be careful if you're doing this not to snip the wires. And actually what I ended up doing is using a set of needle nose pliers for this, which I would rather use than snippers because these are blunt. So the worst I'm going to do is I'm just going to like smush a cable, whereas if I use cable ties or a cable cutter to do this, I could potentially cut a cable. And that's just that little zip tie. So if you ever need to get a zip tie, just get a little needle nose pliers, pinch it, and then just twist it and it'll come right off. So I'm gonna leave this one on here for now. And then I'm gonna go and trace this button. I'm just gonna take one of them out just so you guys can see what that looks like. So I'm just gonna remove this connector right here. And then these buttons come out pretty easy. You just pinch the sides like this and then kind of push them through. And see, boom, popped right through right there. And boom, there you go. So there is a hole for the button, and actually it peeled off a little bit of the laminate finish, but the trim for the button should cover that anyway, so that shouldn't be a huge deal. But anyway, yeah, there you go. There's your button right there. Fun stuff. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do that for all of these. Go ahead and take them out, get it ready for the buttons to get here tomorrow. Now, these buttons are not the worst buttons in the world, and the buttons that I got, which again will be here tomorrow, are not the best buttons. They're not the best ones that I can find on Amazon. They're the cheapest because honestly, this board is being done on a budget, trying to stay under $150 for the whole thing. And yeah, that's kind of how we're doing this. So yeah, so like I said, I'll take the rest of the buttons out. Probably fast forward just so that you guys can not have to watch me do that, but that's what we're doing next. And so there you go. Now all of our buttons are out. Now what I may do, and actually what I think I am gonna do, is before I put any buttons on this, I'm probably gonna take some enamel and spray it over it, just to give it a clear finish. That way it'll be less likely to do this kind of thing where it scratches the artwork or whatever. I can see I've already got a scratch right there, and a couple other ones here too. So that way it will basically just kind of protect it a little bit, and see. So let me go grab that. I'm gonna show you guys what I'm talking about here. So this is the stuff right here. I use the Rust-Oleum stuff. I mean, it's fine. Just the crystal clear enamel, and you do have to apply this in very thin layers. I do this with a lot of the consoles that I restore as well, because a lot of them I do custom paint jobs on. And if you apply it in very thin layers, you know, 3 or 4 coats, you can get a real nice glossy finish. And it really does a great job of protecting paint and whatever else is under here, without really adding any thickness to it really at all. So that's probably what I'll end up doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the other buttons out, just so that we know that everything is good to go and I'm not gonna screw something up by doing this. So yeah, so we're gonna take the other buttons out, and this is probably where I'll stop the video tonight, just because I don't have the parts for it, but I'll pick this up tomorrow, probably in different clothing. And yeah, here we go. Okay, folks, so here it is, our board. As you can see, I cut other holes. I used I don't have my ruler in here, but basically what I did is I used a ruler to measure the space between the center points of each hole. or the center points of these 2 holes, and then basically measured the same distance down, the same distance down, the same distance down this way, and then down this way. As you can see, my drilling did not do the best. My drill press, which I have, these are 1 inch and 1/8 holes, and my drill press unfortunately can't accommodate a bit that's that wide. So as you can see, it, if I can get it without the reflection there, as you can see, it kind of chewed up a couple of these because my bit slipped. I was doing this by hand. So as we always do, we always have a plan B. And my plan B for this, just in case this didn't work out, and by the way, this press board, or particle board that this thing is made of is super cheap, and it just shreds like paper. So, you know, I'm not sure I ever was going to be able to do this and actually make this look nice, because these edges, even not the big ones right there, but even the little ones right here, are still outside the edges of my button trim. So they were always going to show up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this as smooth and as flat as I possibly can, and it's actually relatively okay right now. I'll probably try to sand down those edges just a teeny bit. And then I am going to clear coat this, or not clear coat it, but I'm going to coat it in glossy black enamel, which I have right here. And actually this is not glossy, this is satin. And this will work really well, and it'll do 2 things. It'll do what that clear coat that I was talking about will do, and it'll actually protect it while people are playing, because it's not like a paint or like a water-based thing. It's actually almost like a hard plastic coating that it'll have on it, and then also it'll just make it kind of satin black, kind of like the rest of the machine, so it'll actually still work. And it'll still look good. So that's kind of where we're going to go now. So I'm going to take this thing and go spray this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here is our board. It is now complete, which is great. You can see, I don't know if you guys can see it, it might not show up in the light, I guarantee it'll show up in the reflection though. You can see it still looks a little bit rough around where I gouged the wood with the bit. But not nearly as bad, because I took some wood putty. So got my quick wood from Home Depot here, and or Lowe's, I think is where I got it. But basically it's just wood putty, and you just kind of put it into the grooves, and then when it hardens, it's basically like wood, and you can just take sandpaper like this. This is 3000 grit sandpaper. It's actually way finer than what I ended up using. But you just take sandpaper, sand, you know, around, and it still looks a lot better. And then we painted it matte black and did a clear coat to it. Or actually, no, we used the black enamel clear coat on it. But anyways, it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. You know, it's definitely something that I will end up replacing at some point in the future, just because it's, you know, it was a smooth surface, because it had a laminate top. And you know, the paint only sticks so well to it, so I'm sure it'll chip over time. But you know what? For now, it works. You know, we got our 6 buttons. How do you get creative with the button placement of these ones over here? Just because of this guy, because it was a big hole and it was too big to use for like a joystick or something like that. You can see too, this one has the little outlet cover. The one over here does not, because my daughter was playing with it earlier today and I can't find it now, but we'll find it eventually. But yeah, so the board came out pretty well. Here's the underside. So I went ahead and reattached everything that was attached before, except for the USB control board, because we're going to need a different one, and that is right here. I actually haven't hooked it up yet, but basically you stick a bunch of wires on the ends of these, and then the into this as well. There's a little connector right there that I can use, and you stick them in there, and then it just becomes a USB controller, just like a USB gamepad or, you know, any other USB controller you might have. And then it's going into RetroPie. Now I'm using an original model. I got it hooked up over here. Raspberry Pi for this. Most people, if you're doing this new, would buy a Pi 3B Plus. Or you might even buy the new Pi 4 if you can get your hands on it. Again, I just had this laying around. Actually, a buddy of mine was like, gave this to me just because he knew I was doing this project. You know, and when if it goes well, I will probably upgrade this thing at some point. But for now, this works really well, and it'll run just about everything that I want it to. But anyway, yeah, so that's the build. That's what's going on. There's a few other components that I've listed in the video description. There's an LCD converter board. There's a the RetroPie, and then you also need an amp for a speaker if you want to do that. But there's a lot of tutorials on how to do that online and how to set these up. This is really more about my build and how I just kind of was able to adapt this thing. And it's the $75 arcade unit. So anyways, so that's about it for the components. Again, board came out pretty well, all things considered. When everything's hooked up, I'll throw the camera down there and show you guys how it's all hooked up together, and then we'll see what happens. So here I'm going to open the back of the cabinet so you guys can see exactly kind of what's back here. I got my receipt over there. I did want to make sure that I commemorated that this find and make sure that I always remember, yeah, I got it for 75 bucks. Otherwise, I've just got what you would see on a lot of videos online, honestly, about modding these things. Not a whole lot's different. That's an LCD board that I bought from Amazon. You can also see right here I use this little pin connector to wire up the speaker, which, if you're okay with it being just mono, you can literally just use this same 2-pin connector and bend the third pin down here out of the way a little bit in order to connect that, and boom, your speaker will work. And then further in there, you'll see it if I turn the power on here. See the light coming on. You got this. I had an old Wi-Fi range extender that I had lying around, so rather than just let it go to waste, I plugged it in, hooked it up to our Raspberry Pi right here, and this thing is now wireless. I can FTP into it from any computer in the house and load games on it, so that's pretty cool. Other than that, obviously there's some cable in there. I need to cable manage this thing. It's not in the best shape. You got some wires hanging down up there too, you can see. But overall, pretty happy with the back. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Alright, so here we've got our arcade 1-up Asteroids machine, and it's got a RetroPie on the inside. And there you go. Again, this is a Raspberry Pi 1, not a Raspberry Pi 4, which is the current one, which is what I will upgrade to eventually. But it's still, it plays Nintendo games, some earlier arcade games, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, that sort of thing pretty well. I haven't actually loaded the Game Boy games on here that I want yet. But that said, yeah, it does pretty well. So let's go ahead and try one out. So I think let's do Bucky O'Hare. If you never played Bucky O'Hare, it's actually a really good NES platformer. Kind of hard to find though, so it's pretty expensive if you want to pick up the physical copy, but hey, emulation's a great way to play it. And there you go. We got sound, picture looks good. Yeah, everything's really looking pretty good here. So, pretty happy with how this turned out. Now, again, I do need to do a few upgrades to it, but I am actually pretty happy with the panel. Now you can see a little bit here, there's a little bit of scuffing around where I filled in those gashes with the wood putty, but overall it feels really good. And actually I kind of like it. It kind of makes it feel like it's been in an older arcade and it's seen a little bit of use. It's got a couple of those little nicks and scratches on it, but nothing that's like so unsightly that you would notice it, unless you were like right in front of it. So overall, I'm really happy with how this project turned out, and like I said, this really isn't supposed to be a how-to video on like how you can make your own. There are a lot of those out there, but more just about what I did with my $75 arcade unit that I was able to pick up. And if this is something that you guys like, I will be happy to do more of these in the future. It's not something that I usually do, but or usually do videos of, but I do a lot of this kind of stuff in my spare time, repros, custom stuff like this. And yeah, if you guys like it, I'll do more. So let me know down in the comments below. But until next time, like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff, and I will see you guys next time.